Yes, sir.
They said what?
Well, the budget committee will not be meeting until Thursday night. That's one of the reasons we did this budget, is because of, coming back because of what they will do, so, or what they could possibly do.
Did you get my email?
I did.
I didn't know if you didn't respond.
I hadn't even had it.
Yeah.
I tell you what I can do. See what I'll do. I've got a deal I just sent the board a minute ago. I'll send you a copy of it too. How's that?
All right, that's fine. Your thing's still on for tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Gotta wear a tie tomorrow.
You gotta wear a tie tomorrow.
Mhm.
Can't wear your athletic shirt and County basketball shirt.
I can, but I'll probably wear a tie tomorrow. Well, of course, it won't do it now. Hey, Keith,
Yeah,
where do you want me to send it to? Which,
K ready at Cannon Curry be fine. Yeah,
at Canterbury?
yeah, yeah.
Very good.
Y'all done planting corn?
Quit. We get done. Planned on 1,100, I got about 7. Too wet everywhere I want to go. Plant it, it's too wet.
Thanks, sir. I'm gonna put that in Jennifer's door right now while I grab me a little something.
Oh man, I'm tired of rushing around. Getting old. get any response? You reminded everybody?
No word, no, sir. Kid just sent you that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Take this off, I'm just big.
Brian didn't respond, Travis didn't respond, Nathan didn't.
Nathan did. He wanted to know the ways to get in.
Thought I seen something out with Brian and running or something. That ain't,
You did, sir?
thought I seen something said running it,
Bill Park.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will send another Mayday out.
Was that on a text or was that in a,
You got a text, you got a notification that he wanted to meet with them at 7 o'clock, but he told me he would try to Skype in or what, try to Zoom in is what he wanted to do. So I don't know if he will or not.
I got it 3 times on the text.
all right, you got a cross country meet.
Okay, I just text everybody again. Just coming up, put you a new the BEP, the 8 o'clock in that. There's 759 copy from Marianne Dursky. You should have, everybody should have a recent copy of that, as well as the general purpose school budget and the number sheet. Lisa is going to revise that again. I noticed the things on there that I wanted her to work on again for me on this school enrollment figures that she's going to be working on in the morning, some more on that for me. Before we go over across the street, I want to have those couple other things on there.
Is anybody? It's kindergarten.
Did I give you a copy? Here you go. Did I give you a copy of that BEP? It's the same thing you got, but old stuff here. Old stuff, new stuff, current stuff. Not seeing Nathan or Travis, so you still not had it at 6:30, we do not have a quorum.
That don't match.
What don't matter. Look at your purple budget. Look at your purple one, that's the newest figures.
I'm talking about the BEP,
Oh,
total BEP funding, state and local. Total state BEP funding, 14,650,000. You take 12,182 from it, should come up with county minimal. County minimal,
2.909.
right, it ain't the same.
What's incorrect?
2,468,000, it ain't 2,909,009.
On which line?
On
Which
this-
line in your budget? I know your BEP line,
Okay, the total BEP funding, state and local,
14,650.
right.
Okay,
If you take away the total state BEP funding, it ought to be 2,909,029.
it ought to jive down there.
It's not. It's 2,468,000.
Where are you at?
We don't match.
Well, I know where you're at there.
Right.
Yes, sir. I got that
The
right there.
minimum that they said,
2,909.
that's what Mary Ann and
That's
Ben
correct.
both
That's
said.
correct. The FY20 local contribution,
If you
2.9.
subtract this from that, it should equal that, right?
That's what I would, no, this is the allocation. This is the allocation of percentages, of the percentages total state BEP funding. When you do that and that, it should equal that. Does that equal that? Does that help you? Because that's the state's total state share, and you've got your percentages, 84.95%, 84.95%, 87.95, and 77.73. So the non-classroom funding, the county has to do more than they have to on classroom and instructional benefits and instructional salary. There's Nathan.
Get him up here. We got a quorum and then we'll get started.
All right, Nathan is there. And are you seeing Travis Turney, or are we seeing Travis or
Brian,
Brian Elrod?
all right, Nathan, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you.
All right, good deal.
Nobody else.
I just texted them, so everybody should have got the text, so.
Yeah, they chime in, they chime in. Call roll.
Mr. Daniel,
Present.
Mr. Elrod, Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Turney, Chairman Fan.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 present, 2 absent.
All right, guys, we've got 4 items on the agenda. One is to approve the agenda. Second is to consider the 2020-2021 general purpose budget. Third is to discuss and act on possible waivers for the 21 school year. Number 4 is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a
Make a
motion.
motion to approve.
I second it.
Motion's been made and seconded.
It's made by Mr. Sanders, seconded by Mr. Daniel, to approve the agenda for the special call meeting.
Call roll.
Mr. Daniel,
Aye.
Mr. Sanders,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman Fan.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 3 ayes, no nays.
Mr. Curtis.
Whoever just came on, Mr. Black, you need to unmute.
You have a really bad echo.
Ms. Black, you are you are echoing. I cannot understand you, and this is the chairman's meeting, not mine.
What do you need, Ms. Black?
There's a really bad echo.
Let's see, us too.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Tim Davis, I need you in here, please.
Nathan, do you have the same echo? No.
No, I don't have an echo.
Stacy's shaking her head no.
Ray, okay, if you have an echo, give me a thumbs up on the people that we can see. If you have an echo,
It was just on Lisa Black.
Okay.
She was listening both with her phone or something else. There's
Yep.
two audios.
Ms. Black, you probably need to turn off either the phone or your computer, one of the two.
I muted it inside here.
All right, I'm gonna go on. Item number 2 is to consider the 2020-2021 general purpose budget. First thing I want to fuss about is that it's not balanced. Even with the 75 cent, we've got to have at least 3% left in the account. And it's not close. I don't think we're going to get 75 cents. Heard a couple rumors. I think we're going to get 68.5. And we're way over budget on that. It's $1.1 million, isn't it?
Well, if you look in the purple budget, this is the new one. Nathan, I'm sorry, Mr. Sanders, do you have a copy of the new one that was sent out?
Yes, I do.
All right, so, and Tim, please let us know if one of the other two members do show, please. If Mr. Turney shows or Mr. Elrod shows. Just please let us know if either one of those do show that we can mark that. So if you look on the new one that was done there, you can see, Mr. Chairman, how much it is in the red. $1,168,172 projected under the projected expenditures, which that means you're over in the expenditure line by $1,168,000. That's what we are over. So I've looked at this, I've stared at it, I've dreamed about it in my, more of a nightmare than anything else. But I've looked at it, Douglas has looked at it. The only thing that I know that we can change right now, we did make a appeal to the state, Tennessee Department of Education, in regard to bonus payments for teachers. If there is no LOE, then we have been asked to be excused from the performance part of the differentiated pay plan. And only thing that we will have there would be the $20,000 that we do for, and Dr. Melton can talk more about that, in regard to your additional technology people, additional, and I say that it's a stipend that they receive, as well as instruction, the different types of individuals who assist at every school. Dr. Melton, you might want to talk about that part right there.
So which part? The teacher leaders?
Teacher leaders is what I was searching for. Thank you.
Yes, and reading champs. We have 2 pots of money that comes out of. The ones that are the health coaches come out of the coordinated school health budget. So they're not necessarily in your GP, other than that they're regular teachers. Douglas can probably talk more to that than I could. But then the teacher leaders and reading champs that get it stipends for those leadership type personalities all comes out of the federal budget, federal projects budget, not GP. Only the bonuses for the LOE would come out of the differentiated pay plan. And we already, I think you may have spoken to this when we talked to Ms. Brown and Ms. Moore, that we were already in compliance with the state guidelines on that, without having to pay the bonuses out since there wasn't an LOE this year. Would not be an LOE this year.
And what I have asked for, this may go on, Mr. Chairman, to the third item on the agenda on possible waivers. But we already asked for a waiver in regard to letting people know about teachers know within 5 business days following the last instruction date the student's teacher's contract will not be renewed. Also one in regarding tenure, and another one regarding your participation in your annual training. So I asked for all 3 of those, and those have been probationally granted. And then there's some others that we'll talk about in a minute. But another one of those would be the differentiated pay was the prerogative of the director, and we've done so. That would eliminate, approximately $100,000 and some odd out of the budget that we can reduce. Every time you see a bonus where it says bonus payment, like in line on the expenditures, 71,163, 188. I get the line right. You can see that $75,000 that will disappear from that line item if we're going to do that. So that 75,000 will disappear. The only place that it won't disappear is under special education, and we'll just have to move it to another place because you cannot reduce special ed. So that would be moved to another line item for whatever purposes. Douglas, there was another category, if you can unmute, please for me. There was another category besides special ed, and we were going to check on that one. What was that other one? Hello, Douglas Jennings.
I can't find me. Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, sir.
It was under pre-K. Yeah, there are bonuses budgeted there, but again, that's a grant, so it would have to be absorbed somewhere else within the grant, or you wouldn't get the funds.
So we want the funds. We want every penny we can get. So so it would just be put in another line item there. So that'll help us out about $100,000 and some odd there, Mr. Chairman.
Douglas, on the regular instruction program in 2018, 2019, it's 71100, number 116, $5,644,048. And then in 2018, 2019, we went down to $5,344,000. What's the reason for that?
We actually didn't go down. If you look at the actual 2017-18 versus the actual 2018-19, it didn't go down versus the actual expenditures.
Okay. Well, that's what we want.
This thing, I mean, we've got a revolving door here. There's always teachers leaving. We're hiring teachers all throughout the year.
Mr. Curtis, at our last workshop, there were going to be some positions. I know we talked about some growth positions and different things. So what, if anything, has been taken out of the 68.5 cents that we're looking at?
Mr. Member, Mr. Sanders, you're looking at what's been taken out since then. Very little. We did a little bit more on travel, and also on equipment was taken out. We looked at the bus was taken out, but looking at, you're talking about positions, in regard to positions, I was awaiting the determination of the board on what you wanted to leave out or not leave out. And Douglas, do you have approximately how many growth positions that we decided upon? 2 or 3?
If I remember, we had 3 in there.
So those are still included in these numbers that we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
And you do have the reason that we put those in there is that you do have some schools that are, that could possibly be up or down. And you won't know that until enrollment happens, in early August is when you will know that. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Attorney will not be joining us.
All right, Mr. Curtis, you've cut everything you know to cut, right?
I've gone through again, and Douglas and I have gone through even today, looking at it. And we have cut about everything we can possibly cut. We'll be glad to go through line items if you'd like to with myself and Douglas. But you're looking at, this is a bare budget with the current personnel that we have in place right now. You look at every line item, whether it's special ed or vocational education, health services, whatever you see there. We have gone through that and looked at every line item in regard to this. I have asked supervisors, I've asked principals. We have gone through this and gone through this and gone through this. With the current personnel that we have had, this budget has probably been looked at probably more so than any budget in past memory. Again and again and again, looking for anything and everything we could possibly cut. Besides employees, yes, sir. And transportation, and even in transportation, we cut out the $90,000, and we've asked, and I have reiterated that request to the budget committee and to the county executive about $120,000 on the bus and to utilize in the 2020-21 school year, as well as additional $30,000 to aid us in buying a new bus for the bus that was wrecked.
How many total dollars have you figured you've cut out of it?
Bruce, I've looked at probably we cut out close to $400,000, $400,000 to $500,000. Is depends on what you want to say that was there or wasn't there. But again, we cut about $500,000 out of here just in what I just mentioned. Looking at travel, we've reduced travel. It'll be non-essential travel. It'll be essential travel only. We're not going to a major conference. That conference has been canceled anyway. So we're not going to a major conference that cost us multiple thousands of dollars to go to in Nashville. The lead conference, we will not be going to it. We will also be limiting travel. Wherever we go, we will be limiting travel. So, and then some travel you just have to pay because it's personnel that are utilizing personal vehicles going from point to point, nurses example, or other individuals who are going from point to point. I've informed supervisors of limiting travel even between schools, and most of us have just said, we just won't put it, we just won't put it down like we have put it down in the past. And donating our own wear and tear on our own vehicles when we go from place to place. So that has been greatly diminished. Also, Douglas and I went by equipment line items and reduced equipment line items that have been done. I've gone back and looked at that. I've looked at maintenance, about contracts that we've had, about regarding other contracted services. We spent out, really, a little over $100,000 in 18-19. And I hate to reduce that because you get into equipment that needs to be replaced or things that have to be redone. And, hopefully some of that would be reduced had we got the train grant, but that's a question mark right now of whether we receive the EESI program. And so I kept that in there. Looking at, like I say, if you look at line items and line items, Douglas and I are prepared to do so in doing that. I've looked at any major line item over $100,000 we have scrutinized greatly. So To take $1 million out of a budget that's already bare bones is a daunting task. Because then you're going to have to go into the regular instruction program, and you're looking at the next major line item of being teachers is what we would have to look at. I've been in consultation with Marion Dursky. We've looked at that. I've been in consultation with other directors in the Upper Cumberland. Everybody's facing not hardly as bad a situation as we have, but they are facing a reduction of workforce and what that would look like. And it's not just us, but it is, like we said the other day at the workshop, it is across the state that we're having to make some very tough decisions. But there's no way that I see possible to cut any more that can be cut out of here except going into regular instruction program. Douglas, you might want to chime in on that.
Nothing earth shattering. What you say is right.
I have also informed, we know that we were a little bit above, and Ms. Black, if her echo is repaired, I could talk on this, is that looking at the ESP program, I've instructed that program that every expenditure will be an approved expenditure. That anything in the ESP program must be on that approved list. But the problem is that program is very fickle, and sometimes I think they might approve it, and then sometimes they might not approve it. But in the ESP program, that if you look at line 73,300, you could possibly eliminate that entire program, which would cut out another $100,000. It could be done, but that we have had possibly turning back money under that grant because A, either they didn't approve the expenditure, or B, we didn't utilize that fund. So Lisa's evaluating that line item right now to see what she's got left, so that those funds have to be spent for approved things. So Lisa, are you online back yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not hearing you. Good.
Right, sorry.
You might want to speak on the on 73,300 general purpose school community service, the CCESP grant.
Douglas will have to help me with what you're actually looking at. I know that the board contributes 20,000. I don't know about 100,000. Is that what you said?
If I look at this line item in total general purpose school community is $109,362.
The grant is actually I think it's 86,000.
It's 86,000, and then the other 20,000 that the board kicks in. And then, so I'm assuming they went over more on that as well, Douglas?
But well, see, the grant will not pay Lisa's salary because that's not what she does exclusively.
Right. Right.
So they will not pay that portion of the grant, and you do have to have a director. But then there've been some other expenditures that they would not allow that have come in. But that program is very hard to get your money from. It's harder than anything. It's harder than the $400,000+ pre-K grant. Much harder.
Let the record reflect Mr. Turney is now a participant in this meeting.
I didn't think I'd be able to make it. I had an ant infestation at the house here at my grandmother's, and I've been trying to eradicate them. I'm covered in poison, but I'm here.
Okay, so back to the ESP program. It's fully funded by the grant with the exception of 20,000, which we learned, early on that because Lisa doesn't do that exclusively, then they won't pay that. So we've actually been giving 20,000 towards that.
But you've given whatever the difference is in what we collected, because we have not been able to collect all of the grant in any year.
We have not. Okay.
No.
Thank you, Douglas. I was thinking that second year that we did get it
I
fully
don't think
funded.
so. You,
Okay.
you cannot, there's a particular about what you spend that money for. I don't know, Lisa's talked about maybe equipment and some things she could do to use up that money, but again, they're just very particular about, and she can speak to that a lot more than I can. I don't know about it until I submit a reimbursement and they say, well, we're not going to allow this $1.98 box of Hershey's chocolates or whatever. I mean, they're that picky.
Right,
Okay. Well,
we do get, Nathan, we do often, I call and get approval, and then when we submit it, they want a, a lesson plan or something different, and they may never approve it, and then they may approve it after 2 or 3 months.
okay. Do they, does the grant pay the salaries for
Yes,
the other workers?
yes.
Okay, so all of
It's
those are paid by the
Yeah.
grant.
It's just supplies and stuff like that
Okay.
that they'll just walk on. And the
Okay.
21st Century Grant, the one that's at Westside,
The west side.
is nowhere near like this LEAPS grant. It's nowhere near as particular.
That doesn't
Okay.
run through the GP budget, that's through federal.
That runs through federal. Okay. I've had some concerned people. I don't know about the rest of you. I've had some concern about that program going away. Maybe I missed a conversation there. And maybe we have to reduce what we contribute there. But Mr. Curtis, help me out where that has come into play as far as doing away with that program. I
Well,
don't recall.
That's the only thing that, Douglas has suggested that we could just do. But, that program is pretty well fully funded except for the $20,000. So you're contributing $20,000 to get 109, and so I think that's a good investment
Mhm.
part on that.
That's not,
But that's not going to get you where you need to go. And that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
you're looking at $1,148,172 if you cut it all out. And that's not gonna help. What have you looked into besides classroom teachers cutting?
Well, we've looked at what the board has suggested, and that we've looked at instructional coaches, we've looked at the classroom teachers, we've looked at, like Mary Ann Dursky suggested, going back and looking at enrollment and personnel. We've done that. I mean, we've looked at discontinuing anything that's not required, such as art that you're doing, which that certainly will affect other things. Principals will tell you that will affect, other things there. But then you're looking at, also you could, cut, you've asked me to look at librarians and seeing where, if those are absolutely necessary. And, looking at multiple personnel, you're looking at this. I've asked principals to go back through and to check all personnel in regarding who's absolutely necessary or not necessary. And looking at numbers, you've got your numbers, which you look on your sheets. You can see the average and the maximum class size. We could certainly ask the State Department of Education to allow us to increase the maximum class size and the average. Don't know if they would allow that or not, but you could ask for that as a possible waiver, that you're going to have to up class sizes because of COVID-19. We are getting additional funding, and I think Ms. Mullins can talk on that we're going to be doing a request. We're going to get $371,000 in additional funding from the federal government. But as we have talked about multiple times here, if you get money from the federal government, there are strings attached. So there's where you lie there. But we talk to principals and you talk to individuals, that's where, if you're gonna look at going into personnel, according to Ms. Dursky, certainly you're going to be looking at class sizes and what you can do class size wise.
There's no way to come up with $1,168,172 without going to personnel.
That's my recommendation.
Well, there's, all right.
Unless y'all look at something or somebody else has looked at something other than what I've looked at on this.
What do you recommend that we let go?
That's probably the toughest question I've ever been asked in my career, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure it is.
And that is director or principal or whatever that I've done. And that's like very much similar to the county commission trying to set an ambulance or a fire truck that I was at. So, you ask teachers or you ask principals. I ask principals, okay, I've got principals online right now. What would they tell me? They would cut everything they could cut outside of a classroom teacher.
I'm taking an average of $45,000. That's not people that have been here that are tenured, but that's what I'm taking into average. Maybe people that are not tenured. That comes up to 26 on 1,168,000. It's 26 people.
Yes, sir.
And this is tragedy. But guys, we're sitting here arguing, and I don't actually know what the commission's going to set her rate at. So until I know, I will not know how many people I have to cut.
Well, I've got to tell people before, with this waiver that I did, I've got to let personnel know by June the 15th.
We're looking at 26 people.
Mr. Curtis, just to clarify, is that the day, the deadline that you have to send out the rehire letters? Is that what you're referring to?
That's correct, Mr. Sanders. We got, so by last day, now with the waiver that was provisionally approved, then I will have till June 15th that those letters could go out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Traditionally that date is earlier, but because of COVID-19, we got a waiver on that.
It has been in the past. A waiver of TCA 49-5-409B, which requires school district notify teachers within 5 business days following the last instructional day for the school year if a teacher's contract will not be renewed for the succeeding school year. So you look at the last instructional day, if you consider the abbreviated day, the last instructional day is May the 22nd. You figure 5 days would be May 29th normally, and then that's what you got. And then they've extended this. LEA's granted this waiver must provide teachers notice that their contracts will not be renewed for the 2020-2021 school year no later than June 15th, 2020. Such notice may be provided electronically. So I've got to let people know on June the 15th whether or not they will be rehired in Camden County Schools.
Okay. Does that include, for example, our cafeteria workers, our educational assistants?
No, sir. This is teachers.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Teachers, certified teachers.
Okay. So again, as I've said, this is so early on, and in all honesty, right now we're doing this just to give the commission an idea of what we're asking. But we've got to have a lot of discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. Mr. Curtis, have you had a chance to talk with the principals because they're right there in the front line? I know we said, but anyway, what are the recommendations? I mean, salary is our biggest expense. We know that. Let's just take the elephant in the room. That is our biggest expense. That's the only place that we can cut and make a difference. Now, I'm with what Mr. Fan has said pretty much every meeting, that, I want to keep every valuable employee that we have. However, we have what we have. So I know Mr. Fan has posed that question to you, but have the principals giving you some input on, if it comes down to it, hey, this is what I could do without. Someone threw out, I think, art as an example. I mean, is that the general consensus of the principals? And I don't know if Mr. Fan would maybe want to let them speak tonight or not, but, I need to hear from some people on the front lines, because I've looked at this and I hate it, but salary is our biggest expense. Of the $17 million, salary is our biggest expense. So, I mean, what's the general consensus from the principals in their buildings and what they must have?
Well, we've got a lot of principals, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sanders, we've got a lot of principals on board tonight. So you want to hear from them. I think that's why this meeting is here. I'm sure they'll let you know. And I have talked with principals at length regarding this. We had about a 2-hour meeting just the other day where I bought them lunch. So they know that I showed my appreciation to them, but we sit down there and we talk for a couple of hours. So I will just tell you that they're alarmed. They know this is one of the biggest cuts we've ever had in Cannon County schools history, and they are alarmed, and they want to reduce administrative costs. Certainly, if you're a principal, you don't want to lose your classroom teachers unless it's an absolute have to case. And so they're alarmed about that. They want to reduce travel. They'll reduce, but then again, that's what the chairman says you're doing with pennies, and we need to be looking at millions. So $1 million here. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to talk to our principals about that and see what they.
Absolutely.
So I'll go down to the first one I see, Mr. Nichols at the high school. Mr. Nichols, are you there? Can we unmute Courtney there, Mr. Tim? Mr. Nichols, are you there? Okay, we can see you, but we can't hear you. It's muted, I think, there, Tim, if you want to mute.
No, it's not needed.
Okay, can we get you there, Courtney?
No sound.
Mr. Nichols, we are not hearing you. Okay, so we'll go to Mr. Pitts. Maybe we can come back to you, Courtney, or you can dial in and.
Hello? Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Pitts.
Well, I hesitate to say anything. We'd have to combine classes, and I hate to do that because I don't think the community wants that, and standards will not tolerate that. It's just a problem. I have no solution, and I hate to see teachers combine classes. I taught combined classes for 19 years at Eastside. Mr. Jamin was one of my students, but those were the times back then, and now they're way different. And I just hate to see a teacher have to go back to that. So I don't really have the answer right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pitts. Let's go to Melinda. Melinda Crook, principal at Auburn. Melinda, if you can unmute, or Mr. Tim can help us unmute her, please.
Hello. Sorry. I've been running. I was not wanting to show my face tonight. Okay. Yes, sir.
Your comments about what you could cut.
Well, I feel the same as Mr. Pitts. I mean, I know when you look at our numbers, we have some classrooms with smaller numbers projected. Those are not for sure yet. We don't know. We could be more than that. We could have more than that. But definitely combining classes will be a step backwards. Like Mr. Pitts said, with the standards the way they are, the things that are expected out of our students and our teachers to present to our students, and have students just a lot different than it was when our classrooms were combined. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, because we have some fantastic teachers. It would just be a huge step back. And we talked about art. If art had to go, I think that's one cut we could work around. I don't know, like Mr. Pitts said, there's no great answer.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. Appreciate your. Next I see on the list would be Miss Cossey, Principal at Woodland School. Angela, if you would unmute, please. And you disappeared from there. You are.
Hello. Okay. I'm going to be like everybody else. I don't want to lose my teachers, and definitely bigger class sizes would not be in our favor. That would be taking a step back. We're in a crunch, and just hate to see that happen. So I'd like to protect my people as much as possible. That's all. I'm sorry. I wish I had the magic answer, but I mean, I just want to try to keep our classes. I have 2 retiring this year, so I'm already down 2 teachers as it is. So losing more would not, I'm afraid, and our community is growing in Woodland also. So if we have to lose something, I would rather keep our classroom teachers. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cossey. We'll go next to Woodbury Grammar School Principal Emily Hancock. Ms. Hancock?
Hi. I can't see my stuff today.
Okay, we got you, Emily. You sound fine there in your nice rural setting.
My nice rural setting. Okay. So just like everybody else, I definitely don't want to lose my classroom teachers as far as that goes. And I mean, I would rather have the cuts be more in administrative if possible. But that being said, I don't want to lose my assistant principal either at Woodbury Grammar. And we're in a very unique situation as far as that goes. So I understand it's a tough choice, but with Woodbury Grammar and our special ed population and our student clientele, our assistant principal is very vital to how we operate. So if you have specific questions, I'll be able to happy to answer those.
All right, I'm not, Angela, did you have something else, Ms. Cossey?
No, well, yes, just one more thing. Our assistant principal is very vital too. Maria's just like helped us tons. It's really, and I know Emily will speak the same, just having that extra person in administration to work with students with, just work through tough times, because there are many issues that we, face in a school. And so I think it's important if we can keep that, but I wish you would consider that. And I know Emily would as well. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
has it been about 23 years since we've combined classrooms? Is that not correct?
It has been, I remember the last split class I had was roughly about 1996 or 7.
Well, that was about what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Mr. Sanders.
Because
It was actually a little before that, Mr. Curtis. I graduated in 97, and you were my 6th grade teacher, and you had 6th and 7th. So if we could back up from.
Yeah, I said somewhere around 95, 96 is what
I can relate to you, Nathan, because I was in the combined classroom myself. So that's why I was figuring that was about right.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Mr. Curtis was, I had him for 6th grade, and then they brought Mr. McMurray from Woodbury Grammar to West Side, and that was the year that they eliminated the split classes at West Side, and I assume our other schools. So
I'm willing to admit whenever I'm oblivious, does the law even allow us to do combined classes anymore?
we can do combined classes, but you cannot do split grades, meaning half the 6th goes to the 5th grade teacher, another half goes to the 7th grade teacher.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
You can't do that, but you can have, if your numbers dictate, you can have multi-age classrooms.
But you can't have a single teacher for 2 grades.
You can indeed if the numbers don't go over the maximum class size and the average. Dr. Melton may want to speak on that. In regard to that. Marcia, you want to say something about state law in regard to that?
I think you summarized it very well there. So we just can't do it for the purpose of splitting a classroom. But, if there's 10 in 4th grade and 10 in 5th grade, then the law does permit for classrooms to be combined as long as your totals don't go over.
Okay. So it would only be due to the class size, not just simply to the fact that we're trying to, it can't, I mean, I'm not speaking lightly here by any means, but it can't be just because we're in a budget crunch, we split classes.
That's
We
correct.
can't do that.
And you-
Okay.
And you have to, and as a board member body, you would have to take action on that and say that you're okaying it during this time. That would
And of
be
course,
part-
we wouldn't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's just part of the process.
Yes, ma'am.
And,
Yeah,
and
of course.
TCA does state that it says split classrooms must be approved by the local Board of Education. That's what it says verbatim in Tennessee Code Annotated in the Title 49.
Well, and I think the point that I just made 23 or 4 years ago, we're definitely considering a step back even if we had the class size to go forward with that, we're definitely taking a step back with that for sure.
Well, I really think that in the grades that have accountability 3 through high school, when you're talking about, the amount of tests, think about a 6th grade teacher. If we combined a 6th and 7th grade classroom, that teacher would be accountable for 8 different testing accountabilities: math, ELA, social studies, and science for 6th grade and 7th grade. So the accountability model, that they would have to, that's why they've got to teach all the standards and all. Now for grade levels that aren't high stakes tests, like K1 and 2, then, Regina Merriman and I were about to be placed in a classroom where the numbers were such that we were going to be a multi-age classroom and out at Eastside several years ago. Mr. Pitts may remember this. He was my principal then. And we just didn't have any rooms to put people in. So we were going to put 2 certified teachers, but 3 grades. It would be a primary pod. And, we would basically be teaching reading and math because those are the things that you need to do in those primary grades. And then have learning stations and have the aid part of the day to help us out so that we could have 3 reading groups and 3 math groups. So, and I've gone to a school to see what that looks like in East Tennessee several years ago that was a primary pod and had K1 and 2 all in one classroom with 1 classroom teacher, but she did have an aide part-time.
So, Dr. Milton, I'm sure you can attest to the fact that what a burden it would be on a teacher to do that, even if the numbers permitted. It would be a huge burden for them to keep their. I don't know what I'm trying to look for here. It just to meet the standards is what I'm getting at here.
I agree. I really think in the upper grades, the higher the grade you go, I'll just speak on my behalf too, because I taught 1st and 2nd together, kindergarten and 1st together. And the honest truth was that, I had 28 at that time. And it was when we split them. So I had 20, Angela can speak to this. She was my student at that time. So I had 22 1st graders and 6 2nd graders. And then the next year I had 22 2nd graders and 6 1st graders, unless I just said that the same way. I flip-flopped. So, I had Mr. Pitts probably was no, he wasn't my principal then, but I had, some extra aid time so that she could come in and help me with my small groups. But it is difficult, but I didn't have as high a stakes test as what teachers in the upper grades have. But, when you're teaching reading and math in the primary grades, I think that's an easier, and I know I've got some primary teachers on here too, so I don't want them to think that I'm slighting what they do, by no means, but, we're teaching units and things like that and themes. And so I think it's probably easier without the high accountability models that the upper grades have. But it is very difficult. You're talking about more preps per day. And
Okay. So I guess this question is for Marcia and Mr. Curtis a little bit. I agree. We definitely don't need to go backwards. And Marcia, you made a good point about, the upper grades is where we may have some difficulty. But how is this concept that Ms. Curtis has made us aware of, that you've talked about, how is that different than differentiated instruction. For example, if we have, Sally teacher in, second grade class at, I'll use my school, Westside School, and she is very well educated in how to teach differentiated instruction based on, that class size. I mean, are we not incorporating somewhat of that same concept?
Yeah, I agree. I think we are, but I think our focus has really changed over the last few years. Instead of trying to meet every student and teach to different levels, we have to teach the core content to everybody, and then pull out our small groups, our learning stations and all to meet the needs of that differentiated instruction. So yes, I agree with what you're saying that, we're doing that already. Stacy, I know when she was our Read to Be Ready coach, and I don't know if Kathy's on here too, I think she is, and she was our Read to Be Ready coach, and thinking about what does that look like in a classroom and what do those small groups look like. So you're doing core instruction for everybody, and then you're doing the pullouts for exactly what you've said, that differentiation.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Karen is on here now. I don't see her, but Karen King, principal at Westside. Karen, would you unmute there for us, please?
I've been on here the whole time.
Okay, we didn't see you though.
Well, there's like 40 people on here, so I really just want to piggyback on what Angela said about classroom teachers. We really need to hang on to our classroom teachers. I just feel like that's where the rubber meets the road. I don't think we need to increase class size. That's just less one-on-one instruction.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Any other questions for Miss Karen? So.
Can you hear me?
I can, and I see Miss Connie Foster. I see her too, so I'll recognize her. Anything else, Karen, before I go to Connie?
Yeah, I hadn't finished. I just wanted to say that with what Angela said too, our assistant principal is very helpful. She's running PLCs for us. She's helping in the classroom with our observations, and she's doing a whole lot of on the ground work that our teachers need, that when I'm doing other things, like, or I'm doing classroom while she's doing other things. So I do want to say what Emily said about cutting the administrative piece. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I like my job, but I really think if we want to focus on something, we really need to focus on getting our best money with our classroom teachers and looking at cut to other places.
Karen, before you leave, this is Connie. Back to a little history about these combined classes. Were you the principal when Kathy Gannon had the multi-age class at Eastside?
I was the principal when Kathy had kindergarten and first together, and she will tell you it was not ideal. Kathy,
how many years ago was that?
I was principal at Eastside from 2008 to 2012, so I would say it was probably 2000. Well, it may have been the 11-12 school year, because that was one of the reasons that she came to Westside when I came to Westside, was because of that classroom. So I would say it was the 11-12 school year.
And Mr. Sanders, one thought I had about your question to Dr. Melton about differentiation. In my mind, it's not, we differentiate, but it's the doubling of the standards. So let's say at Eastside, our low numbers are 4th and 5th grade. So I'm just going to lay it out there. If it's Mr. Brad that has to take on 4th and 5th grade, well, Mr. Brad's going to have to not only, he's been teaching 4th and 5th math, 4th and 5th social studies, now he's got to take on 4th and 5th ELA and 4th and 5th science. So it even can impact as low as 4th grade. But I'm like the rest of the principals, this board has been very focused on test scores, and we we want to do anything we can to not sabotage our teachers and our schools in meeting the gains they want to see. And, we want to be a reward school again. And I know every school in the county wants to be. So we just want to protect all those classroom teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connie. Let's see if Courtney Nichols is back where he's got audio or not. If not, I may have him to call me, and we can get that. Okay. Mr. Nichols, are you where you can transmit or not? Don't think so. I would like to hear from the high school principal. So, Mr. Nichols, if you could call me, I will try to put you on speakerphone, and we can do that if you can. Because if you look at the high school, they're probably the largest school in population, and we'll be dealing with amounts of cuts. So here's Mr. Nichols right now on my personal cell phone. Okay, Mr. Nichols, we have you on right now on my speakerphone.
Okay, give me just 30 seconds here. I'll try to cut it down. Can you hear me now?
Can everybody hear okay?
Hey, I do apologize. I do not know what's going on with my computer right here, but for some reason I can't click on the audio. I just want to reiterate the point that the other principals have said that that is where the rubber meets the road. If you look at this from a standpoint that, we need teachers on those front lines. Test scores are important, and I understand that. But also, I want to say that these kids deserve that. I mean, they deserve not be in a classroom of 35 to 40 and having instruction. That's difficult. That's difficult at the high school level. It's difficult on any level. We don't have, I know a lot of people can go right down the road and go to Murfreesboro, especially at the high school level, and they have a plethora of options that they have as far as career technical. That's where everybody starts to look at cutting first. And I'll just be honest with you on that. We don't have a lot of options at Cannon County High School as far as what Rutherford County and the surrounding counties have. But what we do have is good quality programs. One of the wishes that we started was the CNA program. We started that a couple of years ago. That has just taken off, and that's been a great program for our students. I feel like we're just starting to make those strides to get there. I'm hoping that we can kind of continue that. Like I said, I know that cuts are going to have to be made. And I know that y'all are faced with a lot of difficult times right now. But I just hope that we can look at every viable option before we start cutting classroom teachers.
Okay, Mr. Nichols, anything further from the board that I can pass on to Mr. Nichols?
I've got something to say. We're getting some feedback from our principals, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the time they've taken today to do this. I mean, like I said, I was late coming in because I had things going on. We've all got our own lives going on, and we understand that. But main thing is we care about the schools, and we hate to see these possible cuts coming down the line. And of course, I'm pretty vocal, and I'm in this position today because I care, and that's the bottom line. And one thing that really pains me is I was going through and looking at our participants, and I see one county commissioner that is a participant in this discussion that we have. And, I work a full-time job. I work night shift. I got 2 kids at home. I got a lot of responsibility. And it just, I try to make as much as I can. And I just feel like I'm not trying to diss anybody or to cause any contention, but it just pains me. And I've expressed this before of our communication between the board and the county commission. And I feel like us as board members and Mr. Curtis have tried to communicate with them. And I feel like if we're discussing these kind of cuts, that we need to have more commissioners on board listening to what we're talking about here. You know, and that does not sit with me well. And I think they need to have their ears open to understand what we're looking at here as far as cuts. They need to know what we're talking about. They need to know how this is going to impact our children in the schools. They need to understand what we're talking about. They need to hear what's coming out of my mouth right now. And, you know, it could impact these children's lives for years about the cuts that we're making here. We could possibly be making. And I'm here to you know, I'm like I said, I don't care to hurt people's feelings. I didn't take this position to try to make friends. You know, I want to do what's best for the schools. That's the bottom line. And it just upsets me that we don't have more. Look at how many county commissioners we have. I got one online right now, and I don't see a single other one online. That's a problem. That's your first problem right there. That's your first problem. Lack of communication and lack of care. They've already got their mind made up about what they want to give us, and I don't think that's right. We all ought to sit down at the table and talk and communicate. And I don't like that. I don't mean to speak out of term here, but I'm just speaking my mind here. I grew up in the schools. I love Cannon County schools. I do. I was a student there. I was a school resource officer under the schools. I worked at the Board of Education as a technology officer or a technology employee. I have a lot of ties there. I care. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's all my principals. Also, we have Mr. Brad Underwood, the CCEA president, on the line too, if you'd like to hear from Mr. Underwood. Tim, if you'll unmute there, Mr. Underwood, who represents the teachers. He was up there.
Okay, I'm here. It's just a very difficult time for for the students and for the teachers and principals and everyone, and you all as well. It's going to be very difficult to pick out what to cut. It's very difficult. I do know that we need our classroom teachers. I mean, that is very we just know that we need those classroom teachers to be in there with those students. I think you've all said it best. I mean, all the cuts are devastating and very difficult to have to be done, to be made. So I really appreciate everybody's time on this matter as well, and the principals and Mr. Curtis and all the school board members. It is a difficult time, but we know that we really need to keep as many of our classroom teachers as we can, because that is where the majority of the impact takes place. That's all I have to say.
Guys, we're gonna have to come up with $1,168,172 worth of cuts. Now I'm open for discussion on that. Anything else?
I don't think we can get there.
Chairman, how are we going to do that without catastrophically affecting our operations? You tell me how we're going to do it.
I absolutely do not know.
That's the golden question right there. I'm not trying to generalize this. I know this is a serious conversation, but really, that's the question we have to ask ourselves: is what can we do cut-wise to come up with that kind of money and not catastrophically affect our operations? That's what we have. That's what we're looking at today, and that's the crossroads we're at right now.
25.
Yeah, it's got there. It's right there. 25,680. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also recognize Ms. Julie Hackney on here, and she's reminded us we need support for the new reading adoption. Keeping at least one instructional coach would be a major necessity during this time, and that's just her opinion as a teacher, because you've got the new ELA adoption coming up that's going to be rather laborious, would be the word I would use there, because you've got brand new English language arts and reading. So I would add that comment to the record. Thank you, Ms. Hackett. Thanks, Tim.
It's 45-cent increase, yeah.
We can't get there either. But we can't get right here. We're just kicking a can down the road. We can't, 1,168,000, we can't get there. What percent of that can we do? A third? I don't know. You can't, we're self-destructing. You can't sell your, I can't haul a freight for that. Can't sell your crop for that.
Well, say we bought.
Chairman Fan, can I ask a question? This is Karen King.
You can, go ahead.
We're talking about cutting positions. I mean, that sounds like a lot of positions. Like, how many people would you have to cut to even get that kind of money? I mean, I know that's a pie in the sky.
By 26, by my figures, average of 45,000 per person, about 26 people.
I mean, can we stay within state guidelines cutting that many people?
I think so.
The answer is no. I can unequivocally tell you that, Karen.
So, I mean, it's not just going to be teachers. I mean, there's going to have to be cut somewhere else. I mean, 26 positions, that's quite a few a school.
Well, if you look at the numbers that we've got on our sheets here about how many we would take is 12 teachers here. And if you did add the instructional coaches or art or library, that would probably be every art teacher and every librarian in the system. To even get to 20, to get to that, I don't even know if that would do it or not. If you said those 12,
Does that also include taking away assistant principals?
yes, it would. 21, 22.
It's 68.5 cents, right? That we're looking at the possibility. Is that correct?
That is the number right now that the chairman asked me to go back, and we went back and looked at that and put the 68 cents in the purple. Once they got the purple at the top there, Travis.
And that's a far cry from what we need to operate. Go ahead, Nathan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know you were trying to talk. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna ask, Mr. Fan, you said 26 positions, 24, 26?
Average of about 45,000.
Okay. So I think that just answered my question right there. Just to clarify, so when you did that rough figuring, that is just teachers. That's not our other support staff. Is
No,
that
that's
okay?
That's just classroom teachers. I just took an
Okay.
average of 45.
And you can look at that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you can look at other teachers there, you got your alternative instruction program, which is a necessity. You've got your special education program, which you can't do anything there with. Your vocational educational program, that Ms. Nichols already looking at some cuts there. You look at attendance and health services that Bonnie deals with. You pretty well can't cut that. That's pretty well what you're doing there. That's necessary, that's needed. I mean, we've looked at every other one of these supports, and then you look at your the educational assistance. I mean, that's is not a huge amount there, but still, it is an amount. I mean, educational assistants are necessary. And when y'all give me the task of finding out what is necessary and what not, we were bare bones as it was. And then trying to take that out of there is, like I say, one of the toughest tasks I've ever been assigned in my life. And custodians, Yeah, they're probably necessary. Yeah, you talk to these principals, they're necessary. I mean, operation of the plant. I mean, boiler insurance, natural, all of that, electricity, all of that is necessary. You know, transportation. You heard what Ms. Dursky said the other day at the workshop. You can eliminate it, but next year it's going to come down and haunt you again.
Karen Ashford, Miss Ashford, when does the budget committee meets Thursday night, correct?
Correct.
When does the commission vote on the tax rate that we'll receive?
I'm not sure. It'll be brought up again, I'm sure, at the June meeting, which will be the first Thursday.
June 4th?
Yes. And I'm thinking that y'all are about on target with, but you have to remember now, a penny brings in 25. It's bringing in a little more than it did last year.
Yeah, 25,680, Karen.
Yeah, I don't have any numbers in front of me, but that sounds right.
Karen, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate that.
Oh, I wanted to listen in. Actually have invited Mr. Fan and Mr. Curtis to our budget meeting Thursday night to hopefully explain some of this more to the other commissioners. I mean, I'm only one vote, and
I understand.
I really don't want to see anybody lose a job. I don't want to lose mine, and I don't want to see anybody else lose one.
Regardless of any of our opinions on how things need to be handled, I appreciate your input and you joining with us. That's the main thing. The communication is number one for me, and I appreciate that. That's all I got to say. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Guys, item number 2 on the agenda, I'm going to ask if there's a motion out there. If there's not, we're going to move on to item number 3. Item number 3, discuss and act on possible waivers for the 2020-2021 school year.
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
You can.
Mr. Chairman, you will look at, I've got an example of some other systems in the Upper Cumberland who've given other waivers. And this is just mainly a report. No motion is necessary on these waivers. I have asked for those waivers of those 3 that I mentioned. One of that is y'all's training. The third one is that of your waiver of your training requiring every member local to participate in annual training. This waiver will be granted for a local Board of Education member who is unable to complete the annual training requirements during 2019-2020 because of cancellation of in-person meetings due to COVID-19 and is unable to participate in online modules due to lack of equipment or internet services. So I think everybody's pretty well finished their training. I can't verify that, but I think pretty well everybody, you've got 4 here of the 5, so of your training, so that may not even apply. But there are some other waivers that we can consider. And I'm just going to give you a few of those from the Upper Cumberland that some other systems have requested and just kind of get your general guidance on these. One of them is LOE, which is a determination to reduce in workforce decisions. So LOE is one of those factors because there's no LOE scores. Level of effectiveness is LOE for those that don't know. Level of effectiveness, and that's your test scores. Well, we didn't give the test this time, so there are no LOE scores for 2019-2020. So it says in the event that our district has to make reduction in forced decisions like we're doing now, we will not have LOE scores to assist in making those decisions. So for those teachers who have been employed in the district for more than 2 years, one of that would be requesting permission to use LOE from the 18-19 school year. And for teachers that have been employed in the district for just the 19-20, and be a brand new teacher It was in 2020, 2020, where you're requesting permission to use principal evaluation scores to rate teachers on a 1 to 5 scale to determine the teachers chosen for reduction of force. So if these goes to cuts, that is one way to do that. Another thing, and Ms. Patterson is on board tonight, that one district is students, TCA 4961021E. Students should have the opportunity to participate in physical education classes 2 times per week for a total of 60 minutes due to COVID-19. The school district is asking for implementation of this law to be delayed for a period of 1 year to allow for additional time to address remediation need of our students. So that's to hold up on the PE classes, and we don't know if that's going to be talked about during the June 1st session of the legislature. Legislature is going to meet for 3 weeks starting June 1. So we don't know if that law, Bonnie, can I permission to contact Ms. Patterson? Bonnie, if you'll unmute for me, please. And
yes, sir.
I don't think anything was done on that on the legislative session, but it could be done during those 3 weeks. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It was passed last year to be implemented August 1, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of anything with a physical note would be looked at.
But that's one of these. So these are just, one of these is duty-free lunch for teachers is another one that was mentioned because of the duty-free lunch provision law will make it difficult for schools to continue social distancing with large groups of students eating in the same cafeteria at one time. So if they're going to have to eat in their room, that means the duty-free lunch would be curtailed. And these are questions too that we have not only with our own budget crisis here, but about reopening school in August. And that's still a question mark, a big question mark on multiple people. That's who you talk to. The president made note of that just a few days ago about wanting schools to open on time and in person. So these are some of the waivers that we'll look at. We have till June the 30th to submit these waivers that will then be taken to the State Board of Education to be acted upon. So all of these waivers have to be done by June the 30th. So I will be, again, talking with principals and talking with supervisors and with board members in regarding additional waivers for particular situations that we have up into June the 30th. So I've got to let personnel know June 15, and then I've got to know, let people, of course, filling out the appropriate paperwork and submitting that by June the 30th. So we've done finished those first 3, and which are, I call them the cookie cutter ones, those that were already pre-done. And now I will go back through and our task will be to figure out which waivers we want to ask for. Class size reduction would be one. You could ask for, depending upon if we have to do online classes, versus in-person classes. And so a lot of question marks here. I've never seen anything like this in my career. I don't think anybody has, including the dean. I don't think any of us have seen that. But that's what I have in that. No action is necessary, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted you to be aware should action have been necessary, but checking with the state, no action will be necessary by the board.
Schools have got to open. We need to get what we're going to do figured out, and we need to do it fast. Principals have got to make decisions, and we're just delaying the inevitable. But I'd really like to know what we're going to get from the commission.
You might ask Karen, since she's the chairman of the budget committee right there.
Yeah, we're going to talk to them Thursday night. When is the last date that you can accept a budget from us, Karen?
I think they've requested by the 15th that we have your budget.
Well, we sent it over there on the 15th, Karen. So you had it on the 15th, the 75 cents that was approved at the May 7th meeting of the board.
Just the consensus I get from some of the conversations I've heard, I don't think you're gonna get 75 cents. And I don't know where they'll go from there. I just don't think you'll get that. I know that because of this COVID, a lot of people feel like they don't want to raise any taxes, and to do that, we'd have to raise taxes. I'm not saying I'm against raising taxes. I know a lot of people's not for that, but I really don't think you'll get 75 cents. I'd be real surprised if that happened.
That's not gonna help us a whole lot anyway.
Well, we did find out from Marion Dursky with the State Department of Education and also Ben Rogers with CTES in regard to the $2.9 million is that's what the county has to come up with.
Oh, man, I guess we'll try to recess this and come back when we've got some more information. Anybody have some times? What do you think, Mr. Curtis?
Well, this week is pretty well done, unless you want to meet on Friday night. And then next week, you got the 2nd, the 4th, which the 4th is the county commission. I wouldn't suggest meeting on that date. Then you've got the 9th is your workshop coming up, your regularly scheduled workshop on June the 9th. And then your meeting is June the 11th. Is what you've got. So not a lot of options there, except for next week that you could possibly meet. Next Tuesday would be a suggestion. Next Thursday, I would not, or next Monday, you possibly could. So Monday's the 1st, Tuesday is the 2nd.
So we'll put it back on the agenda for June the 11th. What do y'all think?
So you would adjourn this meeting then, Mr. Chairman.
That's correct. Y'all got a problem with that? Nathan?
No, I don't.
I'm
Travis?
good.
You good?
I'm good.
Travis?
Yeah, that's fine.
June the 11th.
And that would give me the following Monday to get personnel notified in regard to positions.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made.
Second.
See y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.